earth. Do you remember? Why have we taken birth? Do you remember?
I love that. Isn't that great? We take the ordinary so much for granted sometimes, and yet everything is waiting for us. Spirit is in everything. Every detail, the tea kettle, the latch on the window, everything is Spirit. Everything is Spirit. There's a phrase that says, nothing is a miracle and everything is a miracle. So do we catch that? Do we walk through with the awareness? Do we sometimes listen to that awareness and hear it? Before we get into the talk, there's two things I want to do. Well, number one, we're going to do, before Mary ran out of voice there, just to mention the Shasta County Interfaith Forum is having an educational forum coming up, not this coming Saturday, but the following Saturday, the 28th of February, from 3:30 to 5 o'clock at the Reading Library. And the public is invited to address questions to an interfaith panel that consists of people from the Islamic faith, the Sikh faith, the Christian and Jewish faiths. And so if you would like to be part of that, I'm going to be there. If you would like to be part of that, to just learn more about different teachings and different ways of viewing the world through religion. It's a powerful panel. It should be very wonderful. It's free. It's open to anyone from the public. So it's at the Reading Library, Saturday, 28th of February, 3:30 to 5 p.m. And my talk today is on love, but before I do love, there's also one other celebration that's happening this weekend, which is known as President's Day. And I just want to give a shout out, because from Washington to Obama, George to Barack, okay, we've had all sorts of leaders in our country. Some have lasted for about a month. Some have lasted for multiple terms. Almost everybody has disagreed with something with each of our leaders. Yes? You know? It's one of the toughest, perhaps the toughest job to do in the world. You know, I know just as a leader of this church, just as a senior minister of this church, trying to make just a few hundred people happy is a Sisyphean task. You know, rolling a rock up the hill constantly, have it fall back down. And it's a challenge. And so to sit there and try and make, 260 or whatever we are, 300 million people plus the rest of the world happy is a thankless job. And so I just want to take a moment to bless and honor each of the people who has ever held that office, who ever will hold that office, and to just honor that, the willingness to say yes, to take that on. And whether we like them or not, whether we agree with them or not, whether they're our party or not, to just bless each individual, each divine incarnation who has said yes to this task throughout all of history. And so I just take a moment to bless and thank each person who has taken on that role, for knowing that they have done the best they could do under the circumstances they found themselves in. And so it is. So the subject tonight is love. And for tomorrow night as well. As a matter of fact, I know of no better topic for us to discuss for the rest of our lives. That's Hafiz, the Sufi poet. The topic tonight is love. And there's nothing else to discuss. Ernest Holmes has said, love is the central flame of the universe, nay, the very fire itself. It's kind of important, right? Thank you. Just checking. It's important to me. Is it important? Hopefully it's important to you, because love is it, baby. And I don't mean romantic love. I mean the capital L love of the universe that we are immersed in. I was thinking this morning that we symbolize the color of love as red. Red is the color of the heart. Red is the color of the blood. Red is the color of the central, the most core part of our beingness. And so that love is our core. That love is who we truly are. That love is why we're here. Every mystic who has ever touched the infinite who has ever had a mystical experience has had the experience of an immense love, totally non-judgmental, doesn't care who you are, what you've done or haven't done, is not keeping a list and checking it twice. That's the guy in the North Pole in a big red suit and a long white beard. But we don't teach that God. We don't teach that God. And the mystics who have touched that have never experienced that God. Jesus, in one of the ways that he talked about God, talked about him as the father of the, quote, prodigal son. And I really don't like the fact that the Bible has, whoever assembled the Bible decided to label that story the prodigal son, because it's not about the prodigal son. It's about the loving father. Because the son takes the money and runs, which, by the way, could have gotten him stoned to death as a good Jewish boy at that point in time, just to even ask for his inheritance. Think about this, okay? Your 17-year-old kid comes up to you today and says, hey, you're going to die anyways, give me my inheritance now. How would you handle that? Well, the father in the story says, yes. He says yes. Because that's what the universe always says, doesn't it? The universe always says yes to us. And the kid goes out and parties, has a really good time, hits Vegas, or the equivalent thereof in those days, does what Mary and I are going to do with any money we gamble with, which is lose it all. I don't want to project that out there. She might win. I'm not going to gamble. I don't gamble. So, you know, I may take $5 and go down to the slots one night if I feel like it. I don't know, but that's not a big thing for me. But goes out and blows it all. Ends up slopping pigs, which is to say he ends up as a crack addict, living out of a dumpster in our day and age. So he ends up as low as a good Jewish boy can go in those days. Finally wakes up, comes to himself, as it says, remembers who he is, remembers that his father's house, the ranch hands, live better than he is at the moment, and comes back with just the willingness to not even be the son anymore, just to be a ranch hand. And the father just greets him with love, does not care an iota about any of that stuff. Throws a big barbecue, gets brand new clothes and a nice new ring, sticks it on his finger, and loves him, and has loved him the entire journey through. No judgment. Now, how the Christians, some of the traditional Christian religions and some of those hardcore, Christians have turned that into God judges you and is going to send you to hell if you look cross-eyed, I don't know, but that's not what Jesus taught. Okay? Take a breath. That's not what Jesus taught, and that's not what the mystics have experienced. Jesus was mystic. Jesus had the oneness experience with the divine. And anyone who has that oneness experience with the divine experiences that absolute infinite love, pure love, so beyond words. And so that's what we operate in. How many of you have had something like that, where you've had some experience of it, some touch, some awareness of it, maybe even just sitting in nature and you realize how beautiful and perfect everything was? Yeah. And so all love that we experience is love with and of the one. So if we're with a partner, if we're with somebody else, we are just manifestations of that love. That person is a manifestation of the divine and of the love of the divine. Now sometimes we're looking at our partner and we forget that, right? We forget that we are too, right? That's why we have things like Valentine's Day, is to remember that, to start to bring it back to the awareness. But the truth is that each of us is a manifestation with the one, in love with the manifestation of the one. Behind it all is always the one. Behind it all is always the divine love. Take a breath. If you have a partner, you might just look at your partner and remember that. If you don't have a partner, you might just look at what you consider partnership with on this planet at the moment and remember that. You might have a dog or a cat, or a parakeet or a turtle or a 300-pound gorilla. And I love, Deepak Chopra has a wonderful quote. People often think of relationship in terms of convenience. But what could be more inconvenient than having every fiber in your body touched by the timeless gifts of passion and love? What could be more inconvenient? You know, I just recently had this experience. You know, I'm going along, I have a nice home, I've got it all settled in, got a nice job, I'm just happy in it. You know, everything's settled down, I've kind of healed off my last divorce, and I'm doing pretty good. And some dang woman walks into my office and says, hey, you know? And we hit it off. And now I got to rearrange some stuff in my house because I got to make room for her, you know? And I got to rearrange some stuff in my life because I got to make room for her. I got to rearrange some stuff in my mind and my heart because I got to make room for her. It's inconvenient. The logical little mind that likes to settle in everything doesn't like that little disruption. Now, the heart's happy. But love is inconvenient. It's not logical. And it can rip our orderly life apart, which, by the way, is not necessarily a bad thing. Because anytime we want to grow in the universe, we have to rip our ordinary life apart, because that's where we are stuck. No matter how good it is, that's where we're stuck. Love is the one thing that has the ability to move us out of our stuckness and take us into an expanded experience of life. Breathe. Breathe an expanded being. There's a wonderful, in the Kabbalah, the Jewish Kabbalah, mystical writings, there's a wonderful parable that talks about the worlds being cylinders of light. And that ours is a cylinder that became so full of light that it shattered. And our work is to put it back together again, to put the pieces back together again. But part of the way we do that is we have to let our own individual selves, our own ideas of our limitations be shattered, so we can fill in where the light needs to be. And so the question is, are you willing to let love shatter your idea, your ordinariness, your ordinary life, your idea of your lack and limitation and your stuckness? Are you willing to let love, and whether it's love of another person or love of the infinite, which always is anyways, are you willing to let love shatter your life and open you up more? So take a breath. And by the way, some of us will say, yeah, but I don't want to get shattered. On the other side of that shattering is more love. It's better. It's more gooder. Or as the Hawaiians say, mo better. Okay? It's more good. It's not that there's pain on the other side of that. But we have to go through the process. Love acquaints each with the whole strength and weakness of the other, and ourselves. For it is the nature and end of this relation that they should represent the human race to each other. The purification of the intellect and the heart from year to year is the real marriage. Each of us is in a relationship. Whether we're formally in some relationship with another person or not, we are all in relationship with ourselves and with the infinite. Have you noticed? And so each year, if we want to be in that relationship, we go deeper, we become more naked, we become more honest, we become more clear and open to that infinite. We let ourselves be seen more fully. I love the phrase intimacy because I've heard it translated as into me see. See into me. And are we willing to stand in the universe? Are we willing to stand in front of the divine, unprotected, uncontrolled, with nothing to hide, with nothing to be ashamed of? Because we're living in an infinite that doesn't hold any shame or guilt for us. But most of us have forgotten that, and we're here to wake up to that. We're here to remember that truth, that each of us can be the honest, real truth of who we are, both the strengths and the weaknesses. Because if you're in love with somebody, you love them despite their weaknesses, their so-called weaknesses, right? Thank you. If you don't, we have practitioners afterwards who can help you. You know, in the Bible, Adam and Eve covered themselves out of a sense of shame, and that was when they moved themselves out of the Garden of Eden, moved themselves out of the unity of consciousness. When we start hiding our authentic self, just the who we are-ness of ourselves, We move out of unitive consciousness. We move away from the divine. We move away from love. And the place and the person we oftentimes most hide ourselves from is ourselves. You know, last week Reverend Linda was talking about our shadow selves, our little closet in which we shove things, right? And that's where we hide our shames, and that's where we hide our things that our things we think are errors in our lives. But they aren't errors, they're just part of our lives. They're part of who we are, who we've come here to be. They're part of our own perfection. We're the one who judges it as errors, or got taught that by somebody else who didn't know any better. But we, you, me, right as we are this second, are perfect. Breathe that in. You're exactly who you're supposed to be, where you're supposed to be, living the life that you're supposed to be. Because the universe doesn't have an agenda for you. And you may tomorrow choose something different. And the universe will love you then, just as much as it does now. Each of us is perfect. What we do has consequences. I was having a discussion before I came in here with a person who was asking about ISIS, you know, the Islamic State that's doing some really ugly things on the planet right now. I want you to breathe as I say this. The universe loves each and every member of ISIS just as much as it loves everybody else. What they are doing has consequences. We teach all is love and all is law. The universe loves undiscriminately. I've heard it say God is so dysfunctional, he loves us no matter what we do or don't do. Can't stop. Okay? Law says, and there are consequences. If I go out and kill somebody, there's something that happens to me and in my soul and in my consciousness that needs to be balanced out from that. And there are consequences. I don't know how that works. I don't know how it all works. I'd like to say it's a nice, easy, tidy thing that before they all die, they will have some experience, but that's not how it works. There's a wonderful phrase in the Bible that says, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord," that I have to repeat oftentimes. When I drove into Seattle, down the freeways, and people would cut me off, I would have to use that phrase a lot. "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord," not mine. You know, let that person go. So I don't have to figure out what to do about that, but I do know that in the law, in the process of the universe, there is something that will balance this out. And I let that go. It's not mine to figure it out. Mine is to be as much love as I can be. Mine is to be the brightest light that I can be, so that sort of stuff does not have to happen on our planet anymore. And to hold that light, and to hold each of those people in light and love until they wake up and remember it. Because each of us has within us, if ISIS is on the planet, each of us has that within us somewhere. Take a breath. Each of us has a part within us that is angry, hateful, hurtful. Take a breath. Can we go into our dark closet and love that part of ourselves too? And that's what's being called for. Thank you. That wasn't part of my original talk, but that is what's being called for. When we talk love, we have to talk as deep as possible, because we all have hurts in ourselves. And we've almost all done things that we are really afraid have really hurt somebody else in our lives. Can we love ourselves anyways? Can we love that other person anyways? Not that the behavior was appropriate, not that what they did was right. Can we love past the behavior, past the activity, to the person, to the God being within, and go right past all that stuff that's in the way and love? And that's what we've been called to do, and it's the hardest thing to do. That's because love is the deepest thing we do. So love calls us to release everything unlike itself. Love calls us. It's the most powerful, highest calling, to release everything unlike itself. Everywhere we've judged or condemned ourselves or each other's, everywhere we've criticized, everywhere that we are out of alignment with love, we have to release that behavior. We have to release that process. So the ultimate journey is to return to love, to pure love. Okay? Take a breath again. We begin to release that which blocks us. We do it through practices. We do it through the practice of forgiveness. We just worked out with our practitioner class this past Monday. And forgiveness doesn't mean you have to be friends with a person. Doesn't mean you have to like the person. Doesn't mean you have to go out and have lunch with the person or make them your best buddy. It just simply means I'm not going to carry around my hurt for what happened anymore. I'm setting the burden down. Yeah, you did it. I've heard that non-forgiveness it's been said that non-forgiveness is like taking poison hoping the other person dies. Okay? And so forgiveness starts to move the stuff out of our own body where we've been holding on to it, where we've been feeling the hurt. And if you've ever noticed, if you ever really paid attention to that, it does stuff to your body that doesn't feel good. And a lot of our diseases are because of our unforgiveness and our hurt. Take a breath. We go through the process of release of condemnation. I heard it once said that Jesus never forgave anybody, he just didn't condemn them. And so whenever there's a point of condemnation, wherever I've condemned someone, wherever I've said, you're bad, you're wrong, wherever I've held them in condemnation, there's a place of unforgiveness. There's a place of lack of love. We do this process for others, and we do this process for ourselves. Many of us, by the time we get into a spiritual path, about the only person we really have, we're good with everybody else, okay? But so often we carry unforgiveness for ourselves. We carry condemnation for ourselves. Can we set that down? Can we free us? Can we love ourselves? Because if you can't love yourself, you'll never love another fully. And then we also do it through the practice of no longer engaging in the behaviors that set up unloving patterns in our lives. There's the 3 C's of criticism, complaining, and condemnation. Patterns not to do. Take a breath. I've had a couple of people say, well, if I don't complain, what do I talk about? But if we stop doing that, if we start naming our good, if we start focusing on what we want. A friend of mine long ago said that, small minds talk about events, mediocre minds talk about other people, and great minds talk about ideas. What level of conversation am I having, both in my own mind and with other people? Am I talking about, well, so-and-so, you ought to see what they did? Or am I talking about my dreams, my ideas, your dreams, your ideas, the highest and greatest good? So we stop engaging in unloving behavior. If it's not loving, don't participate. It's a really good thing to think about. If it's not loving, don't participate. So I wanted to do a little guided meditation where we take a moment to recommit our vows to our one. Because we came here, we all took a vow when we came here, whether we remember it or not. We came here to love and to be loved as God loves. We took a vow to be and experience love. How many of you know that you've done that? Or kind of maybe suspect that you might have, perhaps that might be one of your agendas for being here on the planet? Okay? So how about if today we take a moment to renew those vows? Michael, do you have a little bit of quiet meditation music you can pipe in for a moment? And so what we're going to do is renew our vows to give and receive love. Are you okay with that? Great. So we're going to be open and vulnerable to the divine. So I invite you to take a breath. If you're comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes. Let yourself relax. And let yourself come to the awareness of that deeper part of yourself. Call it your inner wisdom, call it your soul, call it God within, whatever name you want to give it. Inner guide. Allow yourself to move into an awareness of that deep wisdom that is within you. That place that knows that it is here to as love, and to give love, and to receive love. In order to become more present with it, begin to notice that any guilt that you carry begins to float away. If there's anything you feel guilty about, let it float away. You can always pick it up afterwards if you want, but for now we're going to let it float away. If there's any shame you feel about anything, let it float away. Where you're completely free of that. If you're holding anyone else in blame or condemnation, let that float away. Just for now, let it float away. Let any and all unloving behavior that you might have ever engaged in float away. To where you remember this true wisdom self. And you begin to be open to accept love in all of its forms. The infinite love in all of its forms. And say that, I am willing to accept love in all of its forms. I'm willing to accept my oneness with love. I'm willing to accept that I deserve love. I'm willing to accept that I totally deserve love. And I'm willing to accept my true nature as a being of love. And so I commit to the universe. I renew my vow to the universe that I am here to be loved and to give love. That I am here as love. And I invite you to open and remember this truth. To remember the wedding ceremony you had before birth. And if you don't remember it, to imagine it. That you knew you were being of love. And you knew that you were here to share that love and receive that love. Breathe that in. And nothing that has happened between that moment and now has ever changed that truth. I am love. I'm here to be love. I'm here to give love. I'm here to receive love. This is the truth of my being. Breathing that in deeply. Allow yourself to begin to return with full awareness of yourself sitting in this chair in this room as the loving presence you are. Take a deep breath, and when you're ready, gently open your eyes and be fully present back here. The author Hermann Hesse wrote a wonderful short story named Iris, and in it the main character, Anselm, finds love by contemplating the flower, the iris. Emmett Fox says that the solution, one of the New Thought writers says the solution to any problem is to focus on God, to turn our attention to God. And so I invite you this week to focus on love, the love that you are. To take time every day to simply focus on love. Perhaps even throughout your day, if you can remember, maybe set your alarm on your watch or something like that to go off every hour just for a ding, and it remembers, focus on love, focus on love. Focus on love within your body, focus on love within all of your affairs, in your home, in your car, in everything that you're doing, everything that you're being. To remember and focus on and turn your attention to that love. Because what we contemplate, what we put our attention on is what increases. So that's your homework this week is one, be willing to love and be loved. Be willing to love and be loved? Secondly, become aware of my unloving behaviors and release them. That's the tougher one. Are you willing to do it? Not quite so many yeses, but let's try that again. Are you willing to do that? To the best of your ability, are you willing to release your unloving behaviors? And number three, contemplate the love of the universe that it has as and for me. Are you willing to do that? To contemplate the love of the universe as you and that it has for you. Right. I'm going to close with a quote from Mira Afalsa, who was the partner of Sri Aurobindo. She was known as the mother. She says, to find the soul, one must step back from the surface and go deep within and enter. And then there is something warm, tranquil, rich, very still, and very full, like a sweetness. This is the soul. So this week, take the time to discover your soul, which is your connection to infinite love, your expression of yourself as infinite love. When you do, you will find that everything is waiting for you. Everything is waiting for you. Let's pray. So I know that there is one love, one infinite presence, pure joy, pure love, pure good, pure wholeness. That presence is all that there is. There is, in truth, nothing else but that. We have all the illusions, we have all this stuff, but all that stuff is just that. It is shadow work, it is illusion, it is that which we have created out of misunderstanding, because behind it all is a love that simply says yes. So loves us that it says yes. And I know that each of us is immersed in that. And that this week, as the prodigal son did, we come to ourselves. We come to our senses, we remember the truth of who we are. That we are beings of love, expressions of the divine. That this is the truth of our nature here and now. And that it does not matter what we have done, where we have been. The infinite is in love with us right this second. And so I simply speak my word that each of us remembers and wakes up to this truth and comes back and celebrates and has a fabulous party with the universe, with new clothes, the clothing of consciousness, the new ring, the ring of our heart, with a fabulous nourishment for the love and the beings that we are, with great companionship with other beings of love. And this is the truth for each of us. And for this I am so grateful. For the knowing of it, I am so grateful. For remembering of it and waking up to it and the expressing it, I am so grateful. And so I release this word into a law that moves it into form and experience in each person's life who hears this word, knowing that it is done and it is so right here and right now. And together we say, and so it is. Bless you.
To